Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, it's time for the Old Humble Happy Hour. Get your cocktails, get them ready, and we will start the show in just a few moments. All right. The audio check is good. I'm going to go get my drink started. All right, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, without any further ado, let's get this party started. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, I am the Old Humble Guy, Joe Brita. This is the Old Humble Distilling Company, and you are in my tasting room, and I have to ask, have you tried my delicious whiskey? Because if not, I've got a treat for you today, because we have 4 award-winning Texas whiskeys for you to try. First off is our straight whiskey, 90% corn, 10% malted barley, aged 5 years in used bourbon barrels and bottled at 90 proof. Next to it is our special reserve. We take a portion of the straight whiskey and put it back in new barrels to age it a second time. Gives it a little bit deeper color, a little bit darker flavor, a little bit oakier, smokier finish. Third on the list is our Boomtown Bourbon, our flagship bourbon, the first bourbon we've ever made. A true Texas small batch craft bourbon made in 50-gallon batches and aged in 5-gallon barrels. And finally, our Double Oak Rye, a true Texas rye sourced with grains from the Texas Panhandle, aged with extra oak staves to balance out that high rye flavor and give it a nice, clean, smooth finish. 4 award-winning Texas whiskeys, all available right here at the Old Humble Distilling Company and in finer liquor stores near you. Plus, you can go online, oldhumbledistilling.com. Go to shop online, and you can order yourself up a bottle there in 46 states across the country. Treat yourself to something nice. Treat yourself to something from Old Humble Distilling Company. Cheers and happy drinking. And that was a word from our sponsor, me, the Old Humble Guy, the Old Humble Distilling Company, sponsors of the Old Humble Distilling channel, obviously. Move this a little bit this way. That's better. Move this one a little bit this way. I can check everything before the show except for the lights. I just know that one's always in my eyes. And that one sometimes is in my eyes. But hey, we're ready to go live. I'm the Old Humble Guy. This is the Old Humble Distilling Company. We are in my pandemic studio that I started back in sunny 2020. We've been doing this show now for 5 years. 5, count them, all of your fingers. Plus a couple on this hands if you're a machinist or bad with fireworks. I am the owner and operator of the Old Humble Distilling Company, plus our chief spokesperson, because, well, we don't have a big staff. I have a big staff, if you know what I mean. Tonight, okay, let's give a little background of what we've done, where we've been, how we've gotten to where we're at. And I need to pull up I need to pull up the outline for the show that I was going to do, because I kind of wanted to touch on some stuff. And I actually kind of wanted to have an outline so we kind of follow things. But I vaguely remember we were starting out with kind of the history of the show, where we started out. We originated as a little corner of the Twitch universe, starting having our night tonight with Old Humble Rye Whiskey. We started off in the Twitch universe with our friends over at the Cabin Fever live stream, a bunch of creative types who started a live stream channel on Twitch. I don't think they still do it, but they started a live stream channel on Twitch. I think I need to turn it just a little bit to be centered. And they had a long variety. I guess it was like close to 6 hours. They started at something like 4 o'clock and ran till something like midnight. And I would do my 1 hour show, and then they'd go after me with a DJ who did a show. Say, when you come into chat, say hi, and I will explain why in just a moment. And then and basically it was me and my lovely wife. We'd come on, because we were cooped up in the house. We had literally just gotten back from vacation. So we were talking about places that we traveled on our Old Humble happy hour. We had a cocktail of the day, a trip of the night that we would talk about, the trip that we went on, and the stories that we would take from the road. Because we were locked in our house and trapped because it was the pandemic, every single show that we did was either outside in front of the bonfire, without our shoes on, or inside in front of the fireplace. And eventually I moved it into, those socks stink. Eventually I moved it in here to my pandemic studio. Eventually got lights. Eventually, we eventually started building things up and becoming a semi-decent podcast. We had guests on every week because these creative folks didn't have a stage to go on. So I'd bring on musical guests, I'd bring on comedians, I'd bring on people who basically had time on their hands. Then after the pandemic ended, they had their own stages that they went back to, and we quit doing the guest work because these folks, well, they had better things to do, quite honestly, and I don't blame them. For a large part of the time, I even had better things to do. So we would go on hiatus periodically. If you count the number of shows that we did, 250, it's 5 years. That's about one a week. But for a very long period of time, we were doing 2 a week, one on Tuesday, one on Thursday. So we cranked out a bunch of shows, a whole bunch of shows, for the first 3 years. And then I kind of went on hiatus for a little while in year 4, kind of went on hiatus a while in this year 5. But now we're back. We're back, and I'm gonna try and get a regular schedule back in and start doing more of these back on our Wednesday night time slots like we had done in the past, and like I will continue, hopefully, to do in the future. Especially if we get a little bit of love from the audience, folks out there watching, folks out there encouraging us to continue to do what we do. And what we do is basically have a conversation over a couple of drinks. Old Humble Double Oak Rye Whiskey. Delicious. It really is. I like it. I'm not going to lie and say that it's good when it's not good. I actually like this whiskey. I drink this whiskey. I make this whiskey. But of course, I think this whiskey is superior to most other whiskeys that you'll find in the market. And there's a reason for that. But anyway, it's a conversation over whiskey. I encourage you to get into chat and talk with us every time you go. Every person who participates in chat gets put on our wheel of doom and glory at the end of the show, where I will spin it and give away a bottle of our Double Oak Rye. Not this one. It'll be a new bottle, not one that's been drank out of. If we hit our super chat goal for the day, which is 20 super chats of at least $2, so that's a total of $40. That's the goal. Total of $40. The goal is a total of 20 super chats, and I am setting that goal now. We have 2 hours to reach that goal. $40. And that's enough to buy the entire bottle of whiskey plus pay for the shipping. It'll be sent from our online website, so it'll be perfectly legal, completely 100% up and up. Get into chat. All it takes to do is participate. If we hit the financial goal, that actually buys, you know what? I'm going to change it to 10. I'm going to change it to 10. We don't need to do all 20. We're going to remove that goal. Yep. We're going to remove it. And then I'm going to change it start another goal. Yep, we're going to change it to 10 super chats. So I will cover half the price. Yeah, we'll do 10 super chats. We got 2 hours, and then I'll give away a bottle of rye. Hot diggity damn, how's that? But everyone who participates in the super chats gets the amount of money that they contribute. Their name shows up on the wheel. So $2, you get on the wheel 2 times. Plus, show up and chat, you get on the wheel. So you show up and chat, you're on the wheel, whether you contribute funds or not. Contribute funds, you get 1 spot on the wheel for every dollar that you contribute. So you could be on the wheel 41 times. If you do $39 plus $1, you're on the wheel, or $39 plus a chat, then you're on the wheel 40 times. And we're going to do that at the end of the show. All right. So, and that's another thing that I like to do. I like to put our whiskey in people's hands. So I will be, for whoever wins the Wheel of Doom and Glory, it is 2 spins on the wheel, 1 spin for Doom and 1 spin for Glory. The Wheel of Doom and Glory takes no mercy upon your soul, unless you're on the wheel 3 or 4 times, or 2 times. If you're only on the wheel once, you have a risk of just showing up the first time and being eliminated. But if you're on the wheel twice, then you have a chance of being eliminated and winning, getting both Doom and Glory. So you get involved. Make yourself known. Show me you're here in chat. And support us on the super chat. So next up is the conversation topics. This is my part of the show where I will talk about the topic du jour, which is free speech. And this is where I thought that I had an outline printed out. I may not have this outline already printed, but I just want to make sure I hit the points I want to talk about, because we've had a couple of busy weeks. When it comes to free speech, have we not? Big things to do and little. What's that say? Nope, that's not it. Where is it? Maybe I'll have it here. Maybe it'll show up right there. We'll see. All right. Well, anyway, we've had a couple of big weeks. A bunch of people talking about free speech. A bunch of people talking about our rights to free speech and what it takes. I like to expand the topic a little bit wider than just free speech. Like when our protected speech, when our protected rights clash up against each other, then what do we do? But also, what is our responsibility when it comes with free speech? Like, for example, bunches of people are talking about this Riyadh Comedy Festival that's going on right now. Something like 50 comics are going over to Saudi Arabia and doing a show for the Saudi royal family. And a bunch of people got a whole bunch of feelings about it. And I'm not so certain it's such a big deal. But I mean, I get the idea of going over to Riyadh, doing a show for, also my outline for the show is exactly 1 hour, by the way. Going over to Riyadh, doing a show for a regime which is very, very much opposed to free speech and very, very much opposed to comics speaking freely against the regime, for one, or even with unpopular speech. And we don't run into that very often here in the United States. We only recently ran into it, just kind of brushed up against it with the FCC working to remove a comic from the air, working in cahoots with a couple of major broadcast companies, major broadcast carriers, rather, that control a lot of local outlets, working to get one Mr. Jimmy Kimmel off the air. Jimmy Kimmel, right? It wasn't Jimmy Fallon. Jimmy Fallon's the one on NBC, right? This was Jimmy Kimmel, who arguably, you don't have to like him. I don't normally watch late night talk shows at all. They're kind of a vestige of old vaudevillian stage show. They're kind of a leftover. What is that on my? They're kind of a leftover of the Palmolive radio hour and those types of shows. It's not really my cup of tea. Letterman was fun, but I was also, God, I was young when Letterman was doing his thing. These types of shows have kind of ceased to be cease to be as relevant and popular as they used to be. They're very much contrived. They're very much staged. They're very much packaged. And if you watch them, especially, the one show that everybody watched when Kimmel was brought back, it's very much sanitized and polished, and they bring on the actor, they promote the show, and they thanks for coming, show's coming on, you watch it on streaming, and then they go off, and then the next publicist brings out their next guest. It's not really, like, half the show is not really engaging for most people. But that said, YouTube has a billion videos that are mostly shit. This one included. Which also raises an important question, because YouTube still makes money off the presence of the content. So YouTube clearly has a value in having us around and making it possible for us to make content, possible for us to make better content as we learn and get better at doing what we do. They find value in connecting us to an audience. They find value in all that stuff. So us doing what we do, making content for Alphabet ultimately, because YouTube's owned by Google, by Alphabet, the parent company of Google, is what we're doing, the same as what they're doing in Saudi Arabia, where comedians are literally taking 6-figure paychecks, the likes of Pete Davidson and Bill Burr and Tom Segura and Louis C.K., like these luminaries and giants in the comedy scene. They're taking big fat 6-figure paychecks and going to perform comedy for a regime that literally takes comics and makes them disappear because they don't like what the comics say. So if you run afoul of the Saudi regime, you can end up in a jail cell and disappear. I mean, if you write news articles that are offensive to the Saudi regime, you can end up cut into little pieces and put into suitcases and shipped out of the Saudi the Saudi embassy in Turkey, I think that was. These things happen. Is it whitewashing that regime? Is Google as bad as the Saudi regime? No. Empirically, no. Google is not the same as the Saudi regime. It is not even, it's not even close. But is there an ethical concern performing in front of a Saudi regime? Is there a dollar amount at which you're like, my ethics don't really matter that much? Yes, there is definitely a dollar amount at which your ethics don't really matter. Shane Gillis did not find, they did not get to that dollar amount. But I skipped a whole segment. I'll come back to it. Shane Gillis did not accept the invitation, but maybe they're, Pete Davidson actually said in an interview, yeah, I looked at the check. I looked at the amount of money that was being sent to my router or my checking account, and I absolutely said yes. So there's definitely a dollar amount at which you can show up. But again, is that okay? Is that acceptable? Is that what you can, does it matter? And I don't know. You don't want to whitewash a regime. Like when FIFA was coming to, what was it? UAE to do the World Cup, which that happened a couple years ago, right? That was 2024, if I'm not mistaken. Was it 2022? I don't know. I only pay attention to the World Cup when it's actually happening because I'm an American. And we only really care about the World Cup if the United States is doing well in the World Cup. And if I recall, the United States didn't do well in that World Cup, so we didn't really pay very close attention to it. The United States did do well in Brazil, and I remember that World Cup happening, but I don't remember it ending. So I don't think the United States did that well. I only remember, I remember them getting bounced out by, I think the Netherlands, maybe?
I'm not sure. Can't remember. Doesn't matter. We don't pay attention to soccer that much. But does do comedians have that? Is it a comedian's responsibility to speak to speak to power with satire? In places where that is not allowed, will their jokes be heard outside of the arena that they're in? Will their acts be edited by the regime? Are they being told what they can say? Do they have the freedom to say and do what they wish to say and do, like they would have the freedom to say and do what they wish in places like France or Germany or England and other foreign countries? Because there's plenty of places you can go to do comedy for a foreign nation. You can do comedy in the United States and have it heard in Riyadh, thanks to the interwebs in which we are currently on. So does it matter? Does all the navel gazing and belly aching about the Riyadh Comedy Festival even matter? Because ultimately what it boils down to is these guys are just going and telling jokes, and basically their jokes are going to be in that arena that they're in, and they're not really going to get out beyond that anyway. So are they whitewashing the regime? Are they really doing that? Are they giving the regime legitimacy? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. That's obviously it's not a free speech question in the United States, because we have that freedom to be able to do what we do, assuming you're not making assuming you're not making the regime mad and they're not putting pressure on television outlets to remove you from the airwaves, as was done last week, which, again, wholly unprecedented, wholly inappropriate, not at all in keeping with American values and our understanding of constitutional freedoms here in the United States. Now, if it had just been moving on from the Riyadh Comedy Festival, going back to the Jimmy Kimmel question, if it had just been a question about him being unfunny, then yeah, okay. NBC can make that decision every single day of the week, twice on Sunday. Nobody cares. But it was demonstrably not that. It was demonstrably not about Jimmy Kimmel being unfunny. We have evidence. There's plenty of receipts. So there's something highlighted on my screen, and I don't know what it is. And that bothers me a lot. I don't know how to undo that. Anyway, but that's that. We'll go on to other things now. I'm going to move on to the next topic in my free speech monologue that we're going to chat about, because the question of responsibility of people with free speech to use their free speech in places where you have it or don't necessarily have it, like in a place like Riyadh. You have free speech. Do you have a responsibility to use it in a place like Riyadh? And will it even matter if you do? Goes to the next question of whether you have a responsibility to use your free speech in a way that is not spreading misinformation and lies. Satire is one thing. Satires and jokes. I mean, nobody in the People versus Larry Flint, when Jerry Falwell sues Larry Flint about, I believe the big issue was that Larry Flint said that Jerry Falwell was an adulterer, that he fucked his mother, I believe, possibly fucked a goat. And then the question in court, because he sued him, Jerry Falwell sues Larry Flint being the purveyor, owner, and operator of Hustler magazine way back in the day. He's dead now. But there was a whole movie, The People versus Larry Flint. Great movie. Stars Woody Harrelson and Ed Norton. Ed Norton. Yeah. The guy from Fight Club. Great movie. You should go watch it. Very much a free speech movie. There's only a little bit of nudity. Just an acceptable, tasteful amount. And considering it's about Hustler, it's surprising that they had a tasteful amount of nudity, if you're into that sort of thing. But the the judge said, would any reasonable man think that you are, or not the judge, the attorney asked Larry Flint, would any reasonable man think that you, knowing you and your man of character that you are, would be fucking a goat or a pig or your mom, whatever it was that he said he was fucking. And Jerry Falwell said, of course not. I wouldn't do such a thing. And nobody knows me would think that I would do such a thing. And he said, so is that even slandering your name? Is that even hitting its mark as damaging to your reputation? Because clearly nobody's going to believe this. So when it comes to lies and mistruths and misinformation, clearly there's got to be some basic standard of, there's a shadow right here. I need to do something with this lighting. This drives me crazy. It's all the Tylenol my mom had when I was a kid. Clearly I've got the distraction virus in my brain banana. But do people who exercise their free speech have a responsibility to exercise it responsibly? And I would argue yes. That would be my argument, to be yes. Argue with me in chat. Feel free. Jump into chat whenever you feel the spirit descend upon you to move you to speak. And that'll get you on the wheel of doom and glory, by the way. But you know, we had a major hearing in Congress recently about the Biden administration putting pressure on Alphabet, Google, YouTube to throttle back, censor, and in even some cases suspend channels that were spreading misinformation on their platform. Also, X, Twitter, Facebook. There were all of the social media platforms were getting a lot of pressure from the administration in the height of the COVID pandemic to throttle back channels that were spreading misinformation about the vaccines, about the illness, the virus, all this stuff. Is it our responsibility, as we can say and do whatever we want? I can say Tylenol gives you ADHD all day long, but do I have a responsibility to not do I have a responsibility to not spread that misinformation? If I don't know that, shouldn't it be appropriate for me to then cite my support to share whatever expertise I have with that? If I'm telling you that mRNA vaccines change your DNA, shouldn't I have, as a responsible purveyor of my ware of free speech, shouldn't I have should there be some oversight of some way? Like if I were doing it in a newspaper, for example, my editor would say, "No, you can't do this without citing a source. You can't do this without citing some data. You can't." My editor wouldn't let me do it. Of course, I could go get my own newspaper, and people could buy it or people could not buy it. I could spend my own money and make this newspaper happen. But in social media, you just get it for free. Would you buy Alex Jones's nonsense if it wasn't free? Would you buy that shit? Would you pay money for Joe Rogan's nonsensical bullshit about ancient civilizations and the what was it, the early something bombardment? I can't remember what the fucking nonsense is called. Would you pay money for Grant? What's his name? Grant Jones? Not Grant Jones. Grant. That fake archaeologist who's not really an archaeologist, not even a journalist. He says as much. He's not even a journalist. Would you pay money for that crap if it wasn't being given to you freely by the YouTubes, by Netflix? Would you pay money for flat Earth bullshit? Would you pay money for that crap? But you get it given to you free. It just gets shoveled into your brain free all the time because they make money off of it. YouTube makes money off of it. Facebook makes money off of it. Twitter makes money off of it. Instagram makes money off of it. They make money off of it, so they feed it to you constantly and feed it to you and feed it to you and feed it. And they flick that little scab that's right there on your brain, and they flick at it, flick at it, and flick at it until it peels back and the wound opens back up, and then they can just bombard that garbage right into your bloodstream. Would you pay for it? I wouldn't. So what recourse do you end up having with these companies and these organizations that make money off their, like, if it weren't for YouTube, 9/11 truthers wouldn't exist. If it weren't for YouTube, the Sandy Hook truthers wouldn't exist. Alex Jones' biggest mistake when it came financially was, you can say whatever you want about the American government. The American government is not going to sue you for slander and libel. But when he went after the families of Sandy Hook, now they had an opportunity to sue him because he wasn't just lying about the government. He was lying about real human persons. He was lying about real people, real human beings. So that opened him up for lawsuits, and that's why he lost his shit getting the hell suit out of him, because he actually went after actual human beings and he lied about actual human beings. Can't do that. That's against the rules. That's not just against the rules, but it's against the law. But if you are a nonsense purveyor on the YouTubes, you can go out and say whatever fucking nonsense you want to talk about. You can go talk about how the towers were brought down by an inside job. You can talk about how it was crisis actors. You can talk about how Sasquatch exists. You can talk about your fake hunt for the Loch Ness Monster. You can talk about ghost stories and people that you've seen that are dead. And you can talk about all this nonsensical, silly garbage and have absolutely no recourse whatsoever. And YouTube loves it because they make money off of it. Facebook loves it because they make money off of it. And then they start feeding this crap into Lackwit's brains. And then these people who don't believe anything because everything's a conspiracy, they start to believe it and share it and spread it, and it grows and grows, and they make more money. So is it wrong for, it would obviously be wrong for the government to come after you directly, for the feds to say, look, shame on you, you're out. Just like it would be wrong for the feds to go after the broadcast stations who are broadcasting political satire speech. It would be wrong for them to do that. Like, we're going to pull your license unless you put pressure on your content providers. Let's put it into internet speak terms. It would be wrong for the federal government to use their regulatory bodies to put pressure on the license holders unless they put pressure on their content providers to control their content. So if Sinclair and Nexstar and News Media and Graham and Griffin, those are just four that I can think of off the top of my head. If they were told your licenses are going to come under review next year, unless you go to Warner Brothers and tell Warner Brothers that they're not allowed to have any climate change content. If your Warner Brothers content provider gives you any climate change content, all of y'all are going to come under audits, and we're going to review, and you may lose your license. You may not, you may lose it. Either way, it's going to be a hassle. You wouldn't want anything bad to happen to this bar you got here, would ya? It would be wrong. That feels icky. That feels inappropriate, right? We had Rush Limbaugh on the air for years, spreading his bullshit, nonsense, and no, I believe he was on, I want to say he was on NBC here in the Houston market, but I also want to, like late, like after midnight, but I also want to say there was a period where he was on UPN or WB, one of those two other channels, the 5th and 6th channels on the dial. I can't say for sure, but I know he was on the air for like 15 years, 5 years for sure, maybe 15 here when he had his shitty little TV show back in the 90s. So it would be inappropriate. It would be clearly inappropriate to go to those channels and say, "Look, you keep him on the air, we're gonna have problems with your licenses." But is it then inappropriate for? Because you see, a news organization is responsible for what they produce. If you are publishing on your news network or your newspaper, if you are intentionally publishing known bullshit and misinformation, you are liable for that bullshit and misinformation. The National Enquirer, perfect example, nobody believes it. Nobody believes what they post in that or publish in the National Enquirer is legitimate news. Sometimes they break legitimate news. Sometimes they get real news stories. But nobody believes that the farmer's wife had Elvis's baby. Because Elvis was an alien and he came back. Okay, I'm going to fix it. Hang on. All right. I think that might fix it. I was getting tired of the shadow that I was seeing right here. Yeah, I fixed it. That's better. One more thing. Maybe that. Oh, yeah, that's 100 times better. Nobody believes what the National Enquirer says. Although the National Enquirer did break the John Edwards story. I believe it was the National Enquirer that broke the John Edwards story. That he had, that his press or his campaign photographer, I think, was pregnant with his baby. Something. I can't remember exactly what the story was. But he had fucked somebody he wasn't supposed to fuck. And I think it was the National Enquirer that broke that story. Regardless, newspapers are responsible. They're financially responsible if they publish nonsense, bullshit, and lies, slander, and libel. They're responsible for that crap. They can be sued for that crap. They have an obligation to make sure that what they're publishing is not bullshit. Facebook doesn't have that same liability. Facebook doesn't have that responsibility. YouTube doesn't have that responsibility. There's no editorial control over what gets posted, and that's a hangover from back in the 90s and the 80s when these were internet forums, bulletin boards, basically. When we could post whatever you wanted onto the forum, you could post whatever. You could literally go up with virtually go up with a sheet of paper and a thumbtack and put something on the bulletin board. The carriers had no control over what you published. You could publish whatever bullshit and nonsense you wanted to publish. Nobody has any oversight whatsoever. And since then, that was prior to the algorithm. Since then, the algorithm has been developed so that what you publish can now be fed in a main line into people's brains, into people's information streams. Since that time, the algorithms have been improved, have been established, have been created that will feed you information. So if you randomly go look for, I don't know, stuff about Pythagoras and the Pythagorean theorem, the algorithm's going to go, oh, you got a boner for Greek philosophers? Let's give you some more Greek philosophy. Oh, or maybe it's not Greek philosophy. Is it math? Is that what gives you your little boner, you little freak? Here's some more math stuff. Here's all the math stuff you want. Does that get you going? Is that what you like? The algorithm will feed it to you all day long, and they'll try their best. They'll see if they can figure out what it is that gets you engaged, what is you like, what is keeps you watching. They're tracking your time online. They're tracking your eyeballs. They're tracking your likes, your dislikes, your comments. They're tracking all that stuff just to see. They're looking at your cookies. They're looking at what you're shopping for. They're going, oh yeah, you like those backpacks, huh? You little freak. Here's some math backpacks. Or whatever, some Greek philosophy backpacks. You like that? And if you're just idly curious about what all the controversy was with the JFK shooting, oh, now you like the JFK shooting, huh? Here's another shooting. Here's another shooting. Here's another shooting. Oh, it's not the shootings that did it for you? Was it the conspiracy? Well, here's some more conspiracy stuff. Here's some more conspiracy stuff. Would you like to make that your entire personality? Because we can help you do that too. So back then, in the early days of the internet formation, the internet companies were worried, the online providers, they were worried that people would be that they would be held liable for information that people posted to their system, and not just lies and bullshit and slander and libel, but also criminal stuff using the internet. Like if I use the internet, or if you use the internet, if somebody used the internet to sell drugs, is it Comcast's fault that you're selling drugs on their backbone, on their internet? Now, if I sold drugs out of my garage, you could seize my house. The feds, the state, the county, they could seize my house as drug assets. But if I were selling drugs on the internet, Verizon, Comcast, AT&T, all these companies, MCI, WorldCom, oh God, there were so many back in the day, AOL, they were worried that they could potentially be liable and have their assets seized because of the crimes being committed, all the way up to and including human trafficking. But mostly, all of it, really. There's no mostly about it. They were just worried about crimes being committed on their internet, and they were worried that their internet might be seized if there was a big enough crime ring, because they kind of knew what was going on their internet, but they didn't know how to control it. So they couldn't control it, because anybody could go on the internet and post whatever nonsense they wanted to post. Fast forward 35 years, and now you're in 2025, and people are going online saying that vaccines are altering your mitochondria, and your altered mitochondria are showing up in your facial expressions. What? What the fuck even does that mean? Your mitochondrial damage is showing up on your facial expressions? That's not a thing. But you can say it on the internet. Is it our responsibility to review the internet and make sure that the internet is it our responsibility to filter out the bullshit and nonsense? Or like the Washington Post or the Houston Chronicle or the Dallas Daily News or the San Antonio Times or the LA Times or the Shreveport Courier Dispatch, they have a responsibility to filter the news, and they have a responsibility to make sure what they're publishing is true. Does YouTube have that responsibility? Does Facebook have that responsibility? Does X have that responsibility to make sure what they're publishing is true? And if they don't have that responsibility, do then the feds have the right to put pressure on those companies and say, look, this is bullshit and nonsense, and it's dangerous to the public health. You need to restrict these accounts because they're pushing nonsense. They're pushing dangerous bullshit. Is that the same as putting pressure on local outlets and telling them, control your content providers? Because we're content providers. I don't like that term. I prefer this content more than this content. But find us at oldhumbledistilling.com, by the way. I prefer this content over this content every day of the week. But when I'm making this content, I'm at least doing my best to make sure that everything I say is true. I'm not looking for nonsense and conspiracies and bullshit. And I know conspiracy theorists truly and honestly believe down in their bones that their conspiracy bullshit is true. They're not. They're wrong, but they truly and legitimately, honestly in their bones feel like the world around them is not what they think it is, or not what we think it is, that the world around them is not what it appears to be, that there's some mysterious secret world happening behind the scenes, and they're the only ones with the true path to knowledge, and blah, 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 whatever. Sure. Yeah, you've found the key to the universe. You're the only one who has eyes to see behind the veil, blah, 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 whatever. They truly believe it. Well, it's fine. They can truly believe it all they want. Does the carrier, YouTube's, does the carrier have a responsibility to police that? They don't have any liability. but do they have a responsibility? Is that a free speech question? I don't think it's so much a free speech question as I think it's a responsible free speech question. All of our freedoms come with responsibility, except for one. Nobody seems to think that the Second Amendment requires any kind of responsibility. But all of our freedoms come with responsibility. You be an educated voter. Be you can't say incendiary things in a crowded in a crowd. You can't say incendiary things that will lead people to harm themselves or others. You can't as your birthright citizenship, you can't just go find people who need to be citizens. You can't sell your citizenship through marriage for green cards. That has to be a legitimate marriage. You're free to marry whoever you want, but they won't let you marry someone just for a green card. Your citizenship is a responsibility. It's a freedom, but it's also a responsibility. All of our freedoms come with responsibility to not just exercise them, but exercise them responsibly. And the place where we have the greatest latitude and greatest leverage to use our free speech, our freedom of religion, our freedom of speech, our freedom to gather virtually or in person, our freedom to do all of the things in the First Amendment here on the internet in a public forum such as this, seems like the only place where that responsibility seems to go completely out the window. Because we think that it should be fine just to spread any whatever misinformation and bullshit and nonsense you want to spread. Because the question comes, well, who gets to define what misinformation is? I think it falls in line with community standards. Because our community standards should maintain that we don't get, like, the community standard should be that you cannot knowingly spread misinformation. You can be ignorant and spread the misinformation, fine. But you can't be counterfactual. You can't go out. There should be a community standard. You can go out and talk about whatever fucking flat earth stuff you want to talk about. But we're not going to monetize it. That would put an end to that shit pretty fast, wouldn't it? Like, you can go monetize, you just can't monetize it on our platform. I mean, YouTube could come out and say, we don't want to do whiskey-related content. Fine. I would have to find another platform or completely revamp how I market my business. It'd be within their freedoms to do it. They could do it. We're like, we want to be a good, wholesome... They already say you can't do it with porn. No nudity, no penetration, whatever it is. Tumblr did it with porn. It killed Tumblr. Tumblr got bought by Yahoo and they said no porn. And then Tumblr kind of died. X did it with porn until the new guy bought it. And then porn kind of came back on X a little bit. You can't do porn on Instagram. You can't do porn on Facebook. You can't do porn on YouTube. They come close here on the tubes. They absolutely do. They found a workaround with the nipply stuff, doing some fashion crap. You'll have to go look for it yourself. I'm not going to give any links. But yeah, all the terrible fucking cooking shows where they go, this is a great hack. And it's, then you look at it and you're like, dude, you're just making mashed potatoes with chips. And that's not a great idea because you can get dried mashed potatoes. You don't need to use chips. That's fucking gross. People walking around telling them how to cook well-done steaks. Like, some things just shouldn't be done. You don't have to do that crap. You don't have to do that crap at all. But the question becomes, if YouTube is making money off of misinformation, does it become YouTube's responsibility to police the information? Or does YouTube then have an incentive to encourage people to push misinformation? I mean, it's a big question about freedom. Where does freedom of speech, and responsibility of speech meet? Where in that realm does it meet? I don't think that people should have the. I mean, people should have the freedom to say and do whatever they want, but that doesn't mean that people have the freedom to say and do whatever they want on whatever platform they want. You don't own the platform. The platform can decide whether you belong there or not. I mean, you don't go on ESPN radio and start talking about classical music. You don't go on the classic rock and roll station and play your fucking recorder. You don't go on the country and western station and play your steel drum solo. Like, we don't have a right to access every single platform. We do have a right to say and do whatever we want, but we don't have a right to access platforms. So there comes a point where it becomes perfectly fine for government entities. I won't say perfectly fine. It's still a little bit icky when they do it, but it comes a point where it's someone's responsibility to step forward and say, hey, this isn't right. Y'all need to look at this. Y'all need to enforce your damn community standards. And if you're not going to enforce your community standards, then we're going to have to enforce our community standards and make y'all liable for lies and bullshit. And if you're okay with this right now, when we don't know for sure if it's true or false, then go right ahead. But in the future, if it's found out to be false, there's going to be consequences. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but it's always the gray area. It's never the black and white. The black and white's always obvious. It's never the gray area. The gray area is always where you get tripped up. The gray area is where you always run into problems, because the gray area, the black and white, is when people are saying ivermectin, it will cure cancer. Like, no, it won't. It won't. Ivermectin does not cure cancer. Ivermectin will not cure you of your shit. Ivermectin can kill you, and then voila, you will have no more diseases. The stuff that's in quinine. Quinine does not prevent the flu. Quinine does not cure influenza. Quinine prevents mosquito bites. Mosquito bites can carry the flu. Mosquitoes carry the flu. Mosquito bites can get you infected with influenza. Quinine doesn't prevent the flu. Quinine prevents mosquito bites. Preventing mosquito bites can prevent the flu. So if you took quinine to prevent COVID, you weren't doing anything. You were preventing mosquito bites. But we also have trucks that go around and spray for mosquitoes to prevent influenza and West Nile flu and blue tiger flu and whatever other weird types of flu that they have out there. Where are we at on time? Holy crap, we've already gone an hour. Guys, get into chat. I see people over here in the audience, but y'all get into chat. You get into chat, I will put you on the wheel of doom and glory. You get on the wheel of doom and glory. We spin that at the end of the show. Someone is getting knocked off the wheel, and someone is going to win a bottle of our whiskey if we hit our goal for super chats, which is just $20. 10 super chats to the tune of $2 each, and that will pay for half of what it would cost for me to take one of these bottles and ship it to you via our internet portal. That is $20 for shipping, and I believe another $20 for I think it's $40 for the bottle, $35 for the bottle. I can't remember the exact price, but for the low price of a collective participation of $20, I will ship a bottle to one lucky winner. So get into chat. What else do I have on my, so that's it. Misinformation, disinformation, responsibility of free speech plus free speech, the Riyadh Comedy Festival. And that's it. What was going to be my first segment was the 50 states of whiskey, and we were going to launch it with our first state, which was going to be Alabama. But I forgot to look up the primary whiskey in Alabama. I believe that is Clyde Mays. I don't know if that's Alabama or Mississippi. Whiskey, Alabama. We're going to go ahead and kick this off. Alabama style whiskey. Let's talk about Alabama style whiskey since we're here. What is Alabama style whiskey? We're going to be talking about Clyde Mays. I was going to have a graphic and everything. I'll probably come back to this in the next show and do it properly. Read. Oh, goodness gracious. This is terrible typeface. Alabama is home to several whiskey distilleries, including John Emerald, never heard of them. Clyde Mays, I've heard of them, and Redmont Distilling, I have not heard of them. I'm gonna have to get a bottle of one of these guys. That's what we're gonna do for the next one. I'm gonna order up a bottle of one of these Alabama distilleries, and we'll talk about Alabama whiskey. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm not gonna do it this time. We're going to do the 50 states of whiskey. We're going to do it on another day, on another episode. We're going to kick off our series, our new segment of 50 states of whiskey. There's 50 states in the United States, as you know, and each state has a particular style and a couple of particular brands that are indicative of that state. Texas is a little bit curious because Texas is big enough to have 4 different aging regions. So there's not one brand that's indicative of the style of the state. Like if you tried that one from High, Garrison Brothers, that is a very different style of whiskey. Their bourbon is a very different style of bourbon than my Boomtown bourbon here on the Gulf Coast. My Boomtown bourbon here on the Gulf Coast is a very different style of whiskey than Still Austin that's in the Hill Country in Austin. And Still Austin is probably closer to Garrison Brothers than it is to mine because both of those are in the same aging region of the Texas Hill Country. You go a little bit further south, like Devil's River, that's a whole nother aging zone as well. San Antonio is a different aging zone than the Hill Country. That's like the South Texas aging zone versus the Hill Country aging zone. And then you go a little bit further north, like Balcones, that is up there close to Dallas, which is yet a different aging zone. So Balcones, the one bourbon that Balcones has that I've tried, Balcones, Garrison Brothers, or Still Austin. I'd go with Still Austin. Balcones, Still Austin, Devil's River, and Boomtown Bourbon. 4 distinctly different styles of bourbon from 4 distinctly different parts of the state of Texas. Other states don't have this privilege like the state of Texas has. Other states Colorado would be one that has 2 very distinct aging regions because Colorado has the plains in the east and the mountains in the west. California has at least 2. I'd have to double check and see how many exactly that they do have. Florida just has the 1. Alabama just has the 1. Mississippi just has the 1. Although arguably Alabama and Mississippi might have 2 and possibly 3 because the further north you move in Alabama and Mississippi is the deeper you get towards the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. So you might have the high country, the mid country, and the Gulf Coast. You might have 3 aging regions in Alabama and Mississippi. Talk about a place like Georgia, you're probably going to have the 1. North Carolina, South Carolina, probably 2. South Carolina probably has the 1. North Carolina probably has 2. Tennessee has 3 distinct regions, but almost same thing with Kentucky. Kentucky has 2 distinct regions, but almost all the distilleries are from the 1 region where Bourbon County is. You move a little bit further north, Ohio, Indiana, those have 1 region. Ohio, Indiana, not St. Louis, Missouri. Arkansas might have 2 regions, but Arkansas, I don't know if Arkansas's mountains constitute a different aging region from the rest of the state. I think arguably Arkansas has just the 1 region because they just really have kind of a monoclimate throughout that whole region. Oklahoma would just have the 1. Kansas, Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, all of those would just have the one aging region. Going a little bit further east, looking at like Pennsylvania, New York. The seaboard may be a little bit different than the upper, what would we call it? Upcountry, not upcountry, upstate New York. The seaboard may be a little bit different than upstate New York, but New Jersey just has the one. Massachusetts just has the one. Vermont just has the one. Delaware just has the one. Maine just has the one. Go back down to Massachusetts, Maryland, Virginia has probably just the one, and West Virginia also has the one, but West Virginia and Virginia are different. So most of the states are just going to have one or two different styles of whiskey. Texas has 4. Most of the states are just going to have 1. Some of the states are going to have 2. Very few states are going to have 3 or 4. Texas might have 5 if you count if there's a whiskey distillery in West Texas. El Paso would be distinctly different. El Paso, Midland, Odessa, Amarillo, Lubbock, all of those would be distinctly different from San Antonio, Austin, Dallas, Houston. Yeah, so there might be 5 in Texas. There's just no distilleries west of San Antonio in Texas. This is still dark. Maybe it's the light setting. I can't do anything about it. The light switch is way in the back. I need to get these on remotes. I need to do these with remotes so that I can adjust I can just click, adjust the light like real time. Maybe I turned it. I wonder if it's the screen. Yeah, I bet it's probably, this is a shadow from my screen. I bet that's what's going on. Anyway, I'll just turn this way. Turn this way. Yeah, that kind of alleviates it. Anyway, we're done with the hour. This is our happy hour. The happy hour is finished. I would stay on for another hour, but there's no one in chat. Y'all didn't jump into chat. We don't have a conversation going on, so I don't have any comments to catch up on. I don't have any comments to chat with. We're open forum in the second hour, but nobody's here in the open forum. Nobody's asked any questions. Nobody's made any comments, so I don't have anywhere to go from here. Thanks for tuning in. This has been a fantastic time. I've enjoyed talking about this. We'll talk about something else in 2 weeks. We didn't even talk about Charlie Kirk. Huh. Good. Anyway, be awesome to each other. You can be anything you want to be, unless what you want to be is an asshole. Then be something else. Cheers from the Old Humble Distilling Company. It's great to see you guys. Till next time. And now we go to, this is the part of the show where we go to the test sequence. Where's it at? I'm the Old Humble Guy. You're not. Till next time. Cheers.